Ahoy, hello, all of y'all commuters, Ward 5 residents, transportation planners, and I don't know, it's infrastructure nerds. So this is a video about Weston Road, and it's also about Keele, right? And it's also about Parkside Drive, right? Beautiful Parkside Drive. And I'm using OBS so I can like pause and resume recording. So I don't have to do any editing. This is like the computer, screen capping software version of in-camera editing. So this is going to be a bit easier to watch than my previous videos have been. So this is basically about like the fight to bring cycle tracks to Weston Road, but also to Parkside Drive, because it's been noted that Parkside is like just so sketchy. And I've been suggesting this idea of like doing, kind of a hybrid like combination of cycle tracks in different spots, and also like wayfinding side street routes between them. So I wanted to discuss these different approaches to this whole corridor, this whole thing of like all the way from the waterfront, Parkside, Keele, Weston, all the way through like basically through my ward to, past the highway and beyond there. I just don't want to think about it right now, you know. So I'm going to deal with this in like a few different segments, and it's basically going to be like an examination of a direct arterial continuous cycle track type of route versus using the side streets, with maybe my idea of like a couple of interventions here and there where you can't use the side streets, and just comparing like what we'd expect cyclists to be doing with these different with these different ideas, these different plans. So this is what it takes to do the waterfront all the way to like DuPont. Actually, I'll do like all the way to just past Dundas here. That's 24 minutes. It's pretty flat. Bit of climbing, but not that much. But you gotta be on the main street, which kind of sucks. Let's compare that with like the side street route. Yes, this, if they did a turning restriction change here, then this weird loop wouldn't be necessary or whatever. But let's see, 33 minutes, 8 kilometers. It's, another at least 10 meters of climbing. I'm doing this like round trip thing to just make sure that I'm covering, both ways of travel. So yeah, I mean, right away you can see it's, I don't know, it's another 8 minutes. That's not such a big deal, but it's the climb that sucks. That, I don't want to do. I do this because I can, because it's better right now, but for this segment, I would prefer having cycle tracks. But, if we did just some wayfinding signage on the side streets, then we could get away with doing this nicely with, I don't know, almost 350 meters of cycle track through this spot. And then you could avoid having to go all the way over here and doing it where there is some cycling infrastructure. So for this next segment, here's the crazy side street route, 16 minutes, 3.5 kilometers. And I can tell you this spot here is kind of a pain. But let's say we fix this spot with a nice little path going across it. It's okay, 3.5 kilometers. Direct route is 15 minutes. through, I don't know why it's doing this, but whatever. Through this area, I don't mind taking this crazy side street route. It's not awesome, but we could run regular bike lanes along here without too much trouble, and I don't know, it's less of a big deal than putting cycle tracks along here. That would be an act of war. But difference is kind of negligible. So through here, I don't know, maybe we don't need a direct continuous cycle track route, right? Of course, there is the issue of the complication. Like, this is so many waypoints that I actually had to do this little segment separately from this segment because Google Maps doesn't allow you to do enough diversion points to cover here to Eglinton. So this, this ends up being like a lot more directions. And honestly, we are sick of doing this thing where I can't even tell somebody how to get somewhere. I have to like give them a map to do, they gotta like print it out because they'll be checking their cell phone too often to even make it worth it. But, assuming that people are cool with complication, could do this with just like a little segment of 200 meters of cycle track. Maybe, yeah, basically 200 meters. Not a big deal. Oh, by the way, this whole thing is because like Francis Nunziata, our counselor in Ward 5, is against putting in cycle tracks on Weston for all of these reasons. There's too much volume, as in it's too popular, as in it's so popular we need to keep cycling difficult there, okay? We need to build separated infrastructure, so that's why we shouldn't build separated infrastructure, okay? Drivers need to get to and from the highway, so because of that, we need to make sure that it's hard to use Weston for cyclists. Okay, I don't know what this one's about. We do have always driveways, so because of all the turning, we need the median as a turning lane. So yeah, once again, like we can't take out a lane for drivers because drivers need all the room. So we need to make sure nobody's cycling there. So everybody has to drive in order to accommodate the number of drivers there are. Okay. But she's supportive of cycling and pedestrian infrastructure. But we got on this like route that is really important to cyclists and pedestrians. We got all these reasons why it would be a good idea to build cycle tracks there, but they're being used as reasons why we shouldn't. So, yeah, so this is, I'm saying it a little bit late in the video, but this is the reason I'm making this. So for this next segment, this is the direct route for, between the Stockyards area, I guess you'd call it, and Eglinton. And 18 minutes, 4 kilometers. It's very flat, even though there's like this big hill right here. It's still, it's still not so bad. I've done this on Weston Road, and, during rush hour, it's supposed to be impossible. There's supposed to be so many drivers that there's no room for cyclists. And like all of these other arterials, during rush hour, morning or evening, the road is half full. Maybe all the lanes are full going in one direction in a couple of parts of it, like between Black Creek Drive and, like through here. But they'd be full even if there was like 3-4 lanes in each direction. It doesn't really mean that it's taking a lot longer for the drivers to get through. It just means that they're there instead of being somewhere else. And this is because the intersections themselves are bottlenecks. Anyway, so if we did cycle tracks through here, this is pretty direct, 18 minutes, 4 kilometers, about 30 meters of climbing. This is the indirect route that I usually take because I just don't feel like dealing with the stress of, trying to be here. it's just so sketchy without a cycle track. And because we would have to build separated cycle tracks, we can't have them. Yeah. So, yeah, 26 minutes instead of 18. Extra 2 kilometers. So it's over 6K instead of just barely over 4K. And it's twice as much hills. So, yeah. So because the cyclists are using active transportation, I guess we are cool with burning calories, so we might as well be burning a crap load of calories doing these extra hills. I mean, they built Weston the way that they built it to be direct and to avoid extra hills. So this is one of those segments where I'd say, just give us a continuous cycle track along Weston. Like, don't ask us to do an extra 30 meters of climbing. Don't ask us to do an extra, 16 minutes on a route that should take 18 minutes, and don't pretend that there's no space for cycling along here. It's a nice big road. There's extra room. It's not slow because there's not enough lanes. It's slow because the intersections are slow. And it's slow because you absolutely must drive through here because this is the alternative on a bicycle. And so it's this chicken and the egg thing of like, well, we got to have all this space to accommodate all the drivers because everybody must drive to get through here. It's just, can we please turn the page on this and get on with our lives, please? I would love that. So here's the next segment. 20 minutes if you just do it right on Weston. I've done this during rush hour. It is no problem except for the the few drivers who love hazing cyclists and they want to use their opportunities to try and run you off the road and all this stuff. But the driving volumes do not warrant us making sure to exclude cyclists from Weston Road. They just don't. I'm so sorry, but there's just not enough congestion. It's got extra capacity. So, yeah, when I do this, I'm not slowing anyone down, but I do get attacked a little bit. So here's the ridiculous side street route that you would need, and it would still require, um, 500 meters of cycle track to be built there to accommodate that spot where you can't avoid Weston, and then another 230 meters there where you can't avoid Weston, and then another like 800 meters there where you can't avoid it. The spots where you actually don't end up using Weston are not as much as the spots where you absolutely have to. So hence, when I need to do this trip, I end up doing this instead. Totally different route. So this is my like recommended route. You can't get to anywhere in here using this route. But if you need to get from the stockyards to, this area, and then I guess, yeah, you could detour across there. That sort of basically works. Okay. So I'll just run this to there so that it's a fair comparison. And okay, so the direct route, that's 23 minutes, just over 6 kilometers, pretty flat, like, okay, 4 meters of climbing, that's great. Indirect route, oh, whoops, it's twice as much time. It's not twice the distance, but it sure takes longer. And, extra 15 meters of climbing. So, and remember, this is like round trip because I'm making sure that it works both ways. And then my preferred route. Okay, yeah, extra 12 minutes. Not a big deal. Is, some extra time, extra distance. And yeah, it's also quite a bit less flat. So, hey, cool, this is what we're expecting cyclists to do. And it sucks. And this whole area, you're just not supposed to go to or from it on a bicycle. Hey, you are invited to go ahead and use Weston Road and the curb lane right in the middle. Have fun with that. Oh, except there's parking in some of these spots, so, I mean, this is not so bad. So a bunch of it, very easy. And then you got this, where, yeah, We're using 4 lanes to process 2 lanes worth of drivers. During rush hour, it's slightly more busy. It's more like this. And it'd be so cool if the drivers would just do what they're supposed to do, and just when I'm here, they could just go around. But they want to go from being right here to being right here, and it doesn't work. I'm not going to get into this anymore. This like actual driver behavior thing, because it's just it's so boring. And you've all heard it all before. All right, so here's the next leg. It is so inhospitable to do this directly on Weston that you actually have to force Google Maps to look at this route. But so this is if we had cycle tracks all along here, or for those of us who are willing to use vehicular cycling to use roads like Weston. This is, a 27-minute, almost 7-kilometer trip, a little bit of hills. And here's the crazy side street route. It's pretty much the same. So, I mean, if we don't care about people being able to access this neighborhood on a bicycle, right? Because why would anybody here choose to be a cyclist? There's certainly no reason why anybody would need to do any kind of trip here without using a bike. Or while using a bike. I mean, certainly every single activity here should require driving. Nothing really to be done except for no, we should just let people make their own choices in life and maybe honor our commitments to transportation equality and the ecosystem, and also just like being able to get from point A to point B relatively quickly without needing to spend $100,000 a month on a motor vehicle. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know, this last segment, we don't need cycle tracks just to accommodate people getting from this area to this area. As long as they're cool with, biking through here. That looks like a lot of fun. Looks like an adventure. Then, yeah, I guess we don't need cycle tracks up in here. Except, yet again, this is like another place where, it gets busy near the intersections. But even when there's tons of people using it, it does not need to be 5 lanes wide. There's no real, you don't need... Oh, this is Oak. Okay, whatever. There's Weston. Here's the spot where there is so much driving coming off of the highway that we just can't. There's no space for any cycling at all. We absolutely must be 6 lanes for the drivers because you absolutely need this is what I notice. Any place where you absolutely need a car to get through, it's subject to too much congestion, sometimes, and then the rest of the time it's just like, wow, this space is so wasted. And then we try and do stupid little stuff like this, which, what a joke. And people do want to be able to bike through here, so maybe let's let them. Sort of make some sense, please. I mean, even with my, hybrid idea, it's still you still end up having to use Wilson at some point. And so we'd be talking about, yeah, we need 500 meters of cycle tracks here and there. And I do like my idea. I do think that it's great. I spent a whole hour, on promoting this idea because it's so great. And it does work. It does have advantages. It would kickstart the cycling situation. But there's just certain places where I do think it just makes more sense to just build a continuous route, and this is really one of them. I mean, this would be such a great cycling route. It doesn't need to not be a cycling route. I don't see the advantage in keeping cyclists off of it. To me, like I said, these reasons are all good reasons to do it. And we can argue all these points, and we should argue all these points. Let's do that. Let's have this argument. Let's have this discussion. In the end, the problem is we are forcing everybody who wants to go through here to drive, or, well, unless we do my hybrid idea, we are forcing everyone to drive. And if we do my hybrid idea to deal with like this kind of route, then we're forcing everybody to either drive or go way more distance and do way more climbing on their bicycles to avoid using a road that just is not like there's extra capacity there along the whole stretch. Let's just build a nice cycle track going through it, stop forcing everybody to drive, and get on with our lives. There is bigger and better things to pay attention to than this issue, and I would love to just put it to rest. And I can't wait to do that. At some point, just envision in the future what this place is going to look like and tell me that, 50 years from now, if we haven't polluted the earth so much that there is nothing going on in terms of human activity, tell me 50 years from now this is going to still look like this. It's not. Let's just fast forward and step into the future, which is also stepping back into the past, and just fix this situation. It'd be so nice. I've biked along here before. It's a great cycling route. It would be a great cycling route. It could be a great cycling route. Let's make it one. All right, have a great day.